When I decided to learn English in 5 months, I knew I had to build a strong foundation first. I started with the basics, learning the alphabet, common greetings, and simple vocabulary. I bought a beginner's English book and downloaded a language app to help me study daily. Each morning, I would spend 1 hour reviewing new words, repeating sounds, and writing them in a notebook. The goal was to make English part of my daily life, no matter how small the steps were. I quickly learned that repetition was the key to remembering new words. I made flashcards with the 100 most common English words and reviewed them every night before bed. I also labeled items around my house with their English names, like door, mirror, chair, and window. Seeing the words every day helped me remember them naturally. I even started saying the names out loud whenever I used those items. Pronunciation was one of my biggest challenges in the first month. To improve, I watched videos of native speakers on YouTube and repeated after them slowly. I paid close attention to how they moved their lips and tongue. I also used a pronunciation app that let me record my voice and compare it to a native speaker's version. It felt weird at first, but it helped me become more confident when speaking. Listening was another important part of my routine. I listened to English podcasts for beginners while walking or cooking. Sometimes I couldn't understand everything, but I focused on catching familiar words and guessing meanings from context. I also watched children's cartoons in English because they used simple language and clear pronunciation, which made it easier to follow along. By the end of the first month, I could introduce myself, ask basic questions, and understand short conversations. I had memorized around 300 useful words, and I was starting to think in English a little. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. I knew I was building a strong foundation that would support my learning in the months ahead. Chapter 2. The second month, Listening and Speaking Practice. During the second month, my focus shifted more toward listening and speaking. I realized that understanding spoken English was essential if I wanted to communicate naturally. I began every day by watching 30 minutes of English TV shows, especially sitcoms like Friends and The Office. I watched the episodes first with English subtitles, then without them, trying to catch as many words as possible. I wrote down phrases I heard often and practiced repeating them out loud until I could say them fluently. I also made it a habit to speak in English at least once every day. Sometimes I talked to myself in front of the mirror, describing my day or practicing common conversations like ordering food or introducing myself. I joined an online language exchange group where I had short video calls with native English speakers. It was nerve-wracking at first, but over time, I started to feel more comfortable. Even making small mistakes didn't scare me anymore. I saw them as a natural part of learning. To improve my listening skills further, I began using beginner English podcasts. I listened to them during my commute or while cleaning the house. I would listen to the same episode 2 or 3 times to understand it fully. I noticed that the more I listened, the easier it became to recognize sentence structures and vocabulary. I even started thinking in English when I was alone, which helped me feel more connected to the language. This month, I also practiced shadowing, a method where I listened to a short audio clip and repeated everything immediately after the speaker. It was difficult at first because I had to focus on pronunciation, rhythm, and speed all at once. But after a few weeks, my pronunciation improved and I could speak more smoothly. It helped me build confidence and speak without overthinking. By the end of the second month, I was able to hold simple conversations, ask and answer questions naturally, and understand about 70% of what I heard in beginner-level podcasts. Speaking was becoming easier, and listening wasn't so intimidating anymore. I felt more motivated than ever to keep going and reach the next level. Chapter 3. The third month, reading and vocabulary expansion. In the third month, I focused on reading and growing my vocabulary. I bought a few simple English storybooks and made a goal to read at least one page a day. I highlighted new words, looked them up, and wrote them in my vocabulary notebook. Every Sunday, I reviewed all the words I had learned during the week and used them in example sentences. This helped me remember them better and made my vocabulary grow quickly. I also started reading online articles on topics I liked, such as travel, health, and technology. At first, I didn't understand everything, but I focused on understanding the main idea of each paragraph. I didn't stop to check every unknown word. Instead, I tried to guess its meaning from the context. This strategy helped me read more fluently and avoid feeling frustrated when I saw difficult vocabulary. To strengthen my vocabulary even more, I grouped words by theme: food, work, emotions, daily routines, etc. I created mind maps for each category and added words as I encountered them. I also used vocabulary building apps that gave me daily quizzes and challenges. This made learning more interactive and fun, and I could see my progress every week. Reading helped me notice how grammar was used in real situations. I began to understand verb tenses, prepositions, and sentence patterns just by observing them in texts. I didn't need to memorize grammar rules. I saw them in action. I also started keeping a daily journal in English, writing 5 to 10 sentences about my day using the new vocabulary and grammar I was learning. By the end of the third month, I had learned more than 500 new words, could read beginner text without much help, and had a better understanding of English grammar. I still had work to do, but I was proud of how far I had come. English no longer felt foreign. It was slowly becoming part of my daily thinking and expression. Chapter 4. The fourth month, writing and thinking in English. In the fourth month, I made writing a major focus of my routine. I started writing longer paragraphs and short stories in English, using all the vocabulary and grammar I had learned. I share my texts on online language forums where native speakers gave me corrections and advice. It was very helpful, and I kept a list of my most common mistakes to avoid repeating them. Writing every day helped me organize my thoughts better and think more clearly in English. To improve my grammar naturally, I began writing dialogues and role-playing real-life situations. I practiced writing things like emails, messages, and short reports. This helped me learn formal and informal language, and I became more confident using different tenses and expressions. I also use grammar checkers online to analyze my writing and learn from my errors. I began thinking in English more often, especially when I was alone. I challenged myself to describe everything I saw around me in English: the weather, people, actions, or even my feelings. At first, it was difficult to find the right words, but with practice, it became easier. Thinking in English helped me speak and write faster because I didn't need to translate from my native language. To stay motivated, I tracked my progress in a journal. Every week, I wrote about what I had learned, what was still difficult, and how I felt about my journey. Seeing how much I had improved gave me a strong sense of accomplishment. I also began setting small goals, like using 5 new words in a conversation or writing a paragraph without any grammar mistakes. By the end of the 4th month, I was writing full pages in English, thinking in English most of the time, and feeling much more fluent. I could express myself better, and I started to enjoy the learning process more than ever. I knew that the 5th month would be the time to bring everything together and push myself even further. Chapter 5: The 5th Month, Fluency and Real Conversations. In the 5th month, I focused on bringing everything together: listening, speaking, reading, and writing to achieve fluency. I increased the time I spent speaking English by joining online discussion groups and attending virtual meetups. I participated in conversations about everyday topics and even gave short presentations. The more I spoke, the more natural it felt. I no longer translated from my native language. I just spoke. I also started watching more advanced content like TED Talks and news channels in English. I wrote summaries of what I heard and tried to explain the ideas in my own words. This helped me understand complex vocabulary and improve my ability to think critically in English. I paused videos to repeat difficult phrases and practiced saying them with the same rhythm and tone as the speaker. To make my learning more realistic, I simulated daily life situations. I pretended to order food, make hotel reservations, or ask for directions, all in English. I also talked to myself in the mirror as if I were helping a tourist in my city. These exercises made me more confident in real-life conversations and prepared me to use English outside the classroom or the internet. Another important habit I formed was reviewing everything I had learned. I revisited old vocabulary notebooks, rewatched beginner videos, and read my early journal entries. It was amazing to see how far I had come. I noticed that I could now express complex thoughts that were impossible for me just a few months ago. Reviewing gave me motivation and reminded me that consistency works. By the end of the 5th month, I could speak fluently on most topics, understand native speakers, and write text clearly and confidently. I wasn't perfect, but I had achieved something big. I could now live or work in an English-speaking environment without fear. I had turned my goal into reality by taking it step by step. Chapter 6, Beyond 5 months, Keeping the Momentum. Even though my 5-month goal had been completed, I realized that learning English is a lifelong journey. I didn't stop after reaching fluency. Instead, I created a new plan to continue improving. I began reading English novels and writing longer essays. I also challenged myself by listening to different accents and watching documentaries to expand my comprehension. I created a weekly schedule to keep practicing all 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. I made it fun by choosing topics I enjoyed, like movies, technology, and self-development. This kept me motivated and curious. I also followed English creators on social media, which allowed me to stay connected to the language every single day without feeling like I was studying. I started using English more in my personal life. I changed my phone's language to English, wrote my to-do lists in English, and even dreamed in English sometimes. These small choices made a big difference. They helped me maintain fluency and continue to grow naturally without extra pressure. At this point, I also began helping others who were starting their English journey. I shared my story, gave tips, and even practiced with beginners online. Teaching others strengthened my own understanding and made me feel proud of what I had achieved. It showed me that learning a language isn't just about the words. It's about connection and growth. 5 months was just the beginning. With discipline, creativity, and daily exposure, English became part of my life. I knew that I would keep learning, discovering, and communicating in this language for years to come. The journey didn't end. It just evolved into something even more powerful. Chapter 7, Final Lessons, What I Learned About Learning. Looking back at my 5-month journey, I understood that the most important factor was consistency. Even on days when I felt tired or unmotivated, I made sure to do at least one thing in English: read a short article, repeat 5 phrases, or listen to a podcast. These small efforts added up, and they built habits that led to success. I also realized that immersion is key. Surrounding myself with English every day, even if I wasn't in an English-speaking country, made a huge difference. From my phone settings to the music I listened to, I created an environment where English was always present. The more I exposed myself to the language, the more natural it felt. One big lesson I learned was that mistakes are part of learning. In the beginning, I was afraid to speak because I didn't want to be wrong. But when I accepted that mistakes were normal and even necessary, I started to grow faster. Every error was a lesson, and every correction made me stronger. I became less shy and more determined to improve. I also discovered that having clear goals made everything easier. I broke down my 5-month goal into smaller weekly and monthly targets that helped me stay focused and track my progress. When I reached each goal, I celebrated, and that gave me motivation to keep going. Without a clear plan, it would have been easy to quit. Finally, I learned that learning English can change your life. It opens doors, connects you with people from all over the world, and gives you confidence you never imagined. It's not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about building a new part of yourself. If you stay consistent, curious, and positive, you can achieve fluency, just like I did. Chapter 8: Facing Real-World Challenges in English. After completing my structured learning journey, I wanted to test my English in real-world situations. I started by having full conversations with native speakers online. At first, I was nervous. I worried about forgetting words or not understanding everything. But to my surprise, those conversations flowed more easily than I had expected. I made mistakes, yes, but I learned from every single one. The key was to listen carefully, respond with confidence, and not be afraid of silence. With each interaction, my confidence grew, and I became more fluent not just in words, but in expressing myself naturally. I also began to interact with English in everyday places. I would go to international cafes, participate in tourist tours in my city, conducted in English, and help foreign travelers who needed assistance. Each of these small moments gave me the chance to practice English in unexpected, practical ways. I was no longer a student. I was a real English speaker, solving problems, giving directions, asking questions, and sharing stories. These real-life interactions pushed my language skills beyond the textbook, helping me develop an instinct for speaking without needing to think so hard. In my personal life, English became integrated into everything I did. I read self-help books, watched movies without subtitles, and even started dreaming in English regularly. These dreams, although short and sometimes strange, proved that my brain had absorbed the rhythm and structure of the language. I started writing longer journal entries in English, reflecting on my daily experiences, thoughts, and feelings. This not only improved my writing skills, but helped me express deeper emotions that I had never shared in English before. Through these experiences, I faced many challenges. Sometimes I misunderstood accents. Sometimes I couldn't find the right word to express an idea. And sometimes I froze mid-sentence. But each difficulty taught me that fluency is not about being perfect. It's about being adaptable. I learned to paraphrase when I forgot a word, to ask for clarification without shame, and to laugh at myself when I made silly errors. Over time, I stopped seeing challenges as obstacles and began seeing them as stepping stones toward greater fluency. The most important lesson from this chapter of my journey was that using English in the real world is what solidifies your skills. No matter how much you study, practice only becomes powerful when it's applied. Whether it's talking to a stranger, ordering food, attending a meeting, or telling a joke. These are the moments where English truly becomes part of your life. And once you cross that threshold, there's no going back. You not just learned English, you've become someone who lives it. Chapter 9: Creating a Lifestyle Around English. After facing real-world challenges, I decided to take my English even further, not through more intense study sessions, but by building a lifestyle around it. I realized that language learning isn't just a task or a goal. It can be a part of who you are. So, I redesigned my daily habits to naturally include English at every step. I started my mornings by listening to English news while having breakfast, sent daily messages to my language exchange partners, and even wrote my shopping list in English. These small habits kept me constantly immersed, and I barely noticed I was learning because it felt like living. In order to stay motivated, I connected my English use to my personal passions. I'm passionate about entrepreneurship and technology, so I started reading business articles, watching tech talks, and following industry leaders who spoke in English. This kept my vocabulary growing and helped me stay updated in my professional field. Learning was no longer limited to general topics. It became personalized and meaningful. When you combine language learning with your interests, you enjoy the process much more and stay committed in the long run. I also built a routine around active language output, not just passive input. I created a blog in English to share what I was learning. Writing posts forced me to be precise and creative with vocabulary, grammar, and structure. I also recorded short videos where I spoke about topics that mattered to me, such as productivity, travel, and motivation. These videos helped me track my pronunciation, improve my confidence, and build a sense of achievement. Each piece of content was a symbol of how far I had come and how much I still wanted to grow. Over time, my circle of friends changed as well. I became part of online communities where English was the common language, and I made genuine friendships with people from around the world. These relationships motivated me to keep improving, not for a grade or a certificate, but because I wanted to connect deeply with others. I shared stories, ideas, jokes, and dreams in English. Language stopped being a barrier. It became a bridge. The more I lived through English, the more I understood its true value. This lifestyle shift changed everything. I no longer felt like I was studying English. I was simply being myself in a different language. And that, I believe, is the ultimate level of fluency. When English becomes the language you think in, create in, and build your life around, you've gone far beyond just learning it. You've made it part of your identity. Chapter 10, a message to all learners. You can do it too. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's that anyone, yes, anyone, can learn English fluently in 5 months if they have the right mindset, habits, and structure. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to travel abroad, and you don't need expensive courses. What you need is consistency, creativity, and belief in yourself. Start small, be patient, and remember that every word you learn is a step forward. I was once where you are, confused, unsure, and nervous, but I took that first step, and then another, and another. And now, English is mine. To make fast and lasting progress, don't just memorize grammar rules. Live the language. Use English to do the things you already love. If you like music, sing in English. If you enjoy stories, read novels, or write your own. If you're into science, Watch documentaries. Find ways to make the language serve your passions, and you will feel motivated every single day. When you enjoy the process, you no longer feel like you're studying. You feel like you're evolving. Make mistakes boldly. Don't be afraid to sound wrong. Every fluent speaker was once a beginner. The difference is that they kept going. When you speak and fail, you learn faster than when you stay silent. Say the wrong word, forget a tense, confuse the sentence structure, and then learn from it. Celebrate every little success and be proud of every effort. The journey is yours, and no one else can walk it for you. But the destination? It's absolutely reachable. Surround yourself with English physically, digitally, emotionally. Change your phone's language. Read inspiring quotes. Listen to podcasts that make you laugh or think. Talk to yourself in English when no one is watching. Make English your second home, not just your second language. And most importantly, don't compare yourself to others. Your journey is unique, and progress will come if you stay committed, no matter your pace. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about something very important: how to make your mind think in English. Many people study English for years, but they still think in their native language. This habit makes speaking English more difficult because their brain is not trained to process words directly in English. Instead, they translate everything before speaking, which slows them down and causes mistakes. To achieve fluency, you need to change the way your mind works. In this series, I will show you practical techniques to train your brain to think directly in English. If you follow these steps and practice consistently, you will see a big improvement in your ability to speak naturally and confidently. Chapter 1: Why thinking in English is important. When you start thinking in English, you will be able to speak faster and more naturally. Many learners struggle with fluency because they try to translate every sentence in their head before speaking. This process takes time and often leads to awkward pauses or incorrect sentences. Native speakers do not translate. They think directly in their language, which allows them to speak effortlessly. If you want to reach this level, you must train your brain to process information in English without depending on translation. This will not only help you improve your fluency, but also make conversations smoother and more enjoyable. Another advantage of thinking in English is that it helps you build confidence. Many learners feel nervous when speaking because they're unsure about their words or grammar. This hesitation creates anxiety and makes them afraid of making mistakes. However, when you train your mind to think in English, you develop a natural flow of speech. You won't need to stop and translate before responding, which will make you sound more fluent and self-assured. Confidence is key to effective communication, and thinking in English is a great way to achieve it. Additionally, training your brain to think in English will improve your listening skills. If you always translate what you hear into your native language, your brain works slower and you may struggle to keep up with conversations. However, if you can understand English directly, you will process information much faster. This ability will help you follow conversations, watch movies without subtitles, and understand native speakers more easily. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. Another important benefit is that it helps you internalize grammar and sentence structures. When you think in English, your brain gets used to the natural way sentences are formed. You don't need to memorize complicated grammar rules because your mind will absorb the patterns through exposure. Over time, your sentences will sound more natural and you will make fewer grammatical mistakes. This method is much more effective than simply studying rules without using them in real life. Finally, thinking in English allows you to fully immerse yourself in the language. You will start to dream in English, think about your daily activities in English, and even express your emotions in English. The more you surround yourself with the language, the more comfortable and fluent you will become. This is why thinking in English is not just a skill. It is a necessary step toward achieving fluency. Chapter 2. Start with simple words. The first step to training your brain to think in English is to start using simple words in your thoughts. Many learners try to think in English, but get frustrated because they don't know advanced vocabulary. However, you don't need complicated words to start. Focus on basic words and short sentences. For example, when you see an apple, say apple in your mind instead of your native word. When you look at a chair, think, this is a chair. It is brown. It is big. The goal is to build a habit of using English words in your daily life. To make this process easier, try describing things around you in English. If you are in your room, look at different objects and name them. Think about their color, shape, and function. For example, instead of thinking, este es mi escritorio, say, this is my desk. It is made of wood. I use it to study. If you don't know a word, look it up in a dictionary and try to remember it. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Another useful technique is labeling objects in your home. Write English words on small pieces of paper and stick them to furniture, appliances, and everyday items. This method helps your brain associate objects with English words automatically. Every time you see the word mirror on your mirror, your brain reinforces the connection. Eventually, you will stop translating and start thinking in English naturally. It is also important to practice forming simple sentences in your head. Throughout the day, try to describe what you're doing in English. For example, when you wake up, think, I am getting out of bed. I feel tired. I need to brush my teeth. When you cook, think, I am making breakfast. I am frying eggs. They smell delicious. By making this a habit, your brain will become more comfortable processing thoughts in English. The key is consistency. At first, It may feel unnatural, but with practice, it will become automatic. Start small, be patient, and gradually increase the complexity of your thoughts. Over time, you will notice that thinking in English becomes effortless, and you will feel more confident in your ability to speak fluently. Chapter 3. Immerse yourself in English every day. To make your mind think in English, you need to surround yourself with the language as much as possible. The more exposure you have to English, the easier it will be for your brain to process it naturally. One of the best ways to do this is by listening to English daily. You can listen to podcasts, watch movies, or play English music. Even if you don't understand everything, your brain is still absorbing the sounds, rhythms, and patterns of the language. Over time, this exposure will help you think more easily in English. Reading in English is another great way to train your mind. Start with simple texts, such as children's books, articles, or social media posts. Try to read without translating every word. Instead, focus on understanding the general meaning. This method helps your brain associate words with their meanings naturally, without relying on translation. As you improve, challenge yourself with more complex books and articles. Reading in English regularly will improve your vocabulary and make thinking in English much easier. Speaking to yourself in English is also a powerful technique. Throughout the day, try to narrate your actions in English. For example, when cooking, say, "Now I am cutting vegetables. The knife is sharp. I'm making a salad." This simple habit forces your brain to think in English and strengthens your speaking skills. If you don't know a word, describe it using words you already know. This will help you become more flexible with the language. Another great way to immerse yourself in English is by changing the language settings on your phone, computer, and apps. This small change forces you to interact with English every day. At first, it might be difficult, but over time, your brain will adapt. The more you see and use English, the more natural it will feel. Finally, try to surround yourself with people who speak English. If you have friends or classmates who speak English, practice with them. If not, join online communities, language exchange groups, or even speak with AI assistants in English. The key is to use English as much as possible in your daily life. The more you immerse yourself in the language, the faster you will start thinking in English naturally. Chapter 4. Train your brain with daily exercises. Training your brain to think in English requires daily practice. One effective exercise is the 5-minute thinking challenge. Set a timer for 5 minutes and try to think only in English. You can think about what you did today, what you will do tomorrow, or describe your surroundings. If you do this exercise every day, your brain will become more comfortable with English thoughts. Over time, you can increase the duration to 10 or 15 minutes. Writing is another great way to train your brain. Try to write a short journal entry in English every day. You can write about your feelings, your goals, or something interesting that happened. Writing helps organize your thoughts in English and improves your ability to express yourself. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just focus on expressing your ideas. The more you write, the more natural thinking in English will become. Another useful technique is speaking out loud. Choose a topic and talk about it for 1 or 2 minutes in English. You can talk about your favorite food, your hobbies, or your plans for the weekend. If you don't know a word, try to explain it using other words. This method forces your brain to think creatively in English. Using flashcards can also help you train your mind. Write English words on one side and their meanings or pictures on the other. Review them daily and try to use the words in sentences. This practice will help you remember vocabulary more easily and reinforce your ability to think in English. Lastly, visualization is a powerful tool. Close your eyes and imagine a situation, such as ordering food at a restaurant or traveling to a new city. Try to imagine the conversation in English. This mental exercise will prepare you for real-life situations and make thinking in English feel more natural. Chapter 5. Be patient and stay consistent. Learning to think in English is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, patience, and consistent practice. Many learners feel frustrated because they expect quick results, but language learning is a gradual process. The key is to keep practicing every day, even if progress feels slow. Small improvements add up over time, and eventually, you will notice that thinking in English becomes easier and more automatic. One of the most important things to remember is to not be afraid of making mistakes. Many learners hesitate to speak or think in English because they fear saying something wrong. However, mistakes are a natural part of learning. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something new. Instead of focusing on perfection, focus on progress. The more you practice, the fewer mistakes you will make. Staying motivated is also crucial. Set small goals for yourself, such as thinking in English for 5 minutes a day or writing a short paragraph in English. Celebrate your achievements, no matter how small. Learning a new language is challenging, but every step you take brings you closer to fluency. It is also helpful to track your progress. Keep a journal where you write about your experiences learning English. Write down new words you learn, challenges you face, and improvements you notice. Looking back at your progress will help you stay motivated and see how much you have improved. Finally, make learning English fun. Find ways to enjoy the process, such as watching your favorite movies in English, playing word games, or talking with friends. The more you enjoy learning, the more motivated you will be to practice. Thinking in English is a skill that requires time and dedication, but with patience and consistency, you will achieve fluency. Chapter 6. Stop translating and start associating. One of the biggest obstacles to thinking in English is the habit of translating. Many learners translate every word from their native language before speaking, which slows them down and makes conversations difficult. To think in English, you need to break this habit and start associating words directly with their meanings. A great way to do this is by using images instead of translations. For example, if you learn the word apple, don't think of the word in your native language. Instead, picture an apple in your mind. This method helps your brain create direct connections between words and their meanings without relying on translation. Another technique is using simple definitions in English. If you don't know a word, try to describe it instead of translating it. For example, if you forget the word chair, you can say it's something you sit on. This practice strengthens your ability to think in English and helps you become more independent with the language. You can also train your brain by playing word association games. Choose a word and think of related words in English. For example, if you pick beach, you can think of words like sand, ocean, waves, and sun. This activity helps your mind stay in English and builds your vocabulary naturally. Finally, practice using English-only dictionaries. Instead of looking up translations, use an English dictionary to find explanations in English. This method forces your brain to process information in English, helping you think more naturally in the language. Chapter 7. Think in simple sentences first. Many learners struggle with thinking in English because they try to form complex sentences in their minds. At the beginning, it's important to keep your thoughts simple. Instead of trying to think in long, complicated sentences, start with short and clear ideas. For example, if you see a dog, you can think that dog is big. If you're hungry, you can think, I want to eat something. These simple sentences will help your brain get used to forming thoughts in English without feeling overwhelmed. Once you feel comfortable with simple sentences, you can start expanding them. Instead of saying, that dog is big, you can say that big dog is running in the park. Gradually adding details will help you build more complex thoughts in English. Another helpful exercise is describing what you see around you. For example, if you're in a room, think, there's a table. The table is brown. It has a book on it. This practice helps your brain form sentences quickly and naturally. It's also useful to practice thinking about your daily plans in English. In the morning, try to say to yourself, today I will go to work. After work, I will buy groceries. This habit will help you get used to organizing your thoughts in English. Remember, thinking in English is like building muscle. You have to start small and keep practicing until it becomes natural. The more you train your brain with simple sentences, the easier it will be to form complex thoughts over time. Chapter 8. Use context to guess words. A common problem for English learners is getting stuck when they don't know a word. Instead of stopping and looking for a translation, Train yourself to guess the meaning using context. This technique will help you think in English more smoothly and improve your comprehension skills. For example, if you read a sentence like, "She grabbed her umbrella because it was raining," you might not know the word umbrella. However, you can guess its meaning because it is related to rain. This method allows you to keep thinking in English without relying on translation. Another strategy is paying attention to words that are similar to your native language. Many languages share similar vocabulary, especially in academic or technical fields. Words like information, hospital, and problem exist in many languages with similar meanings. Recognizing these words can help you understand new sentences more easily. You can also practice this skill by reading books or watching movies with subtitles in English. When you see an unfamiliar word, try to understand it from the situation before checking the dictionary. This exercise strengthens your ability to think in English and makes learning new vocabulary more natural. Finally, try to guess words when speaking. If you don't know how to say something, use the words you already know to describe it. For example, if you forget the word refrigerator, you can say, "It's a machine that keeps food cold." This practice helps you stay in English and improves your fluency. Chapter 9. Surround yourself with English speakers. The best way to train your brain to think in English is by surrounding yourself with people who speak English. When you're in an English-speaking environment, your brain has no choice but to process information in English. If you live in a country where English is not common, you can still create an English-speaking environment. Join online communities, language exchange programs, or social media groups where people communicate in English. Talking to real people in English will force your brain to think quickly and naturally. Another effective method is shadowing, which means repeating what native speakers say. Choose an English podcast or video and try to repeat the sentences immediately after hearing them. This practice helps your brain process English faster and improves your pronunciation. You can also find a language partner. There are many apps and websites that connect language learners with native speakers. Having regular conversations in English will help you get used to thinking in the language without translating. If you have the opportunity, travel to an English-speaking country. Being in a place where everyone speaks English will force you to use the language in real-life situations. Even if you don't travel, try to put yourself in situations where you need to speak English, such as attending language meetups or ordering food in English at a restaurant. The more you surround yourself with English speakers, the more natural it will become to think in English. The key is to stay consistent and practice as much as possible. Chapter 10. Keep practicing and never give up. Learning to think in English is a long journey, but if you stay dedicated, you will see progress. Many people give up because they feel it's too difficult, but the secret to success is persistence. One way to stay motivated is by setting clear goals. For example, challenge yourself to think in English for 10 minutes every day or to write a short journal entry in English every night. Setting small goals will help you stay focused and make learning more enjoyable. It's also important to track your progress. Keep a record of new words you learn, thoughts you successfully expressed in English, or moments when you understood English without translating. Looking back at your progress will remind you how far you've come and keep you motivated. Surround yourself with positive influences. Follow English-speaking content creators. Read inspiring stories about language learners and talk to people who encourage you. Having a positive mindset will make the learning process much easier. Finally, remember that mistakes are part of learning. Don't be afraid to make errors when speaking or thinking in English. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve. The more you practice, the better you will become. Thinking in English is a skill that requires time and effort, but if you stay consistent, you will achieve fluency. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and never give up. You're closer to thinking in English than you think. Chapter 11. Overcoming Mental Blocks. One of the biggest challenges in thinking in English is overcoming mental blocks. Many learners experience moments when they suddenly feel unable to form sentences or express their thoughts, even if they know the words. This happens because their brain is still relying on their native language to organize thoughts, making the transition to English more difficult. To overcome this, it's important to train your brain to react in English instead of freezing when you don't know a word or phrase. One way to do this is by practicing circumlocution, which means explaining something using different words. For example, if you forget the word fridge, instead of panicking, you can say, "It's the machine that keeps food cold." This forces your brain to stay in English without depending on translation. Another way to break mental blocks is to practice speaking aloud even when you're alone. Many people fear making mistakes, which leads them to hesitate before speaking. By talking to yourself in English, whether describing your actions, expressing your thoughts, or even reading aloud, you help your brain become more comfortable with forming sentences quickly and naturally. It's also helpful to practice speaking without worrying too much about grammar. While grammar is important, focusing too much on perfect sentences can slow down your thinking process. Instead, prioritize communication and fluency. The more you practice thinking and speaking freely, the faster your brain will adapt to English. Lastly, remember that mistakes are not failures. They are part of the learning process. Instead of being afraid of errors, embrace them as opportunities to improve. Every time you struggle to find a word or form a sentence, you're training your brain to think in English more efficiently. Chapter 12. Expanding your thought process in English. At the beginning of your English learning journey, You might only be able to form simple sentences in your mind. However, as you improve, it's important to expand your thought process by making your sentences more complex and detailed. This helps you develop a deeper understanding of English and improves your ability to express yourself fluently. One way to do this is by adding details to your thoughts. Instead of thinking the weather is nice, you can expand it to the weather is nice today because the sun is shining and there's a cool breeze. By gradually adding more information, you train your brain to structure longer thoughts in English. Another strategy is to practice connecting ideas. In conversations, native speakers don't just say one sentence at a time. They link their ideas together smoothly. To do this, practice using words like because so, however, and although. For example, instead of saying, I like coffee, it tastes good, you can say, I like coffee because it has a rich flavor and it gives me energy in the morning. You can also challenge yourself by thinking about abstract concepts in English. Instead of just describing what you see, try to express your opinions or emotions. For example, instead of just saying, I am happy today, think, I feel happy today because I had a great conversation with a friend and I accomplished an important task. This forces your brain to work with more complex ideas. Expanding your thought process in English takes practice, but the more you push yourself to think in full, detailed sentences, the easier it will become. Over time, you will find that your ability to express yourself naturally in English improves significantly. Chapter 13, Developing an English Mindset. Thinking in English is not just about knowing words and grammar. It's also about adopting an English-speaking mindset. This means training yourself to approach problems, conversations, and learning experiences the way a native English speaker would. When you immerse yourself in the culture and thought patterns of a language, your ability to think in English improves dramatically. One way to develop this mindset is by observing how native speakers express themselves. Watch interviews, listen to podcasts, and pay attention to how people structure their thoughts. Notice how they describe situations, how they use idioms, and how they react in conversations. The more you expose yourself to natural English, the more your brain will absorb these patterns. Another important aspect is understanding cultural context. English speakers often communicate differently than speakers of other languages. For example, in English, indirect expressions are commonly used to sound polite. Instead of saying, give me water, a native speaker would say, could I have a glass of water, please? Being aware of these cultural differences helps you think more naturally in English. You can also practice putting yourself in an English-speaking mindset by imagining everyday scenarios. Think about how you would order food at a restaurant, how you would introduce yourself in a job interview, or how you would respond to a casual conversation. Running these mental simulations in English will help you become more confident when you face real situations. Lastly, adopt the mindset of a lifelong learner. Thinking in English is not something you achieve overnight. It's a continuous process of improvement. Stay curious, keep practicing, and don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. The more you embrace the English-speaking mindset, the more natural your thinking process will become. Chapter 14. Using writing to strengthen your thoughts. While speaking and listening are essential for thinking in English, writing is another powerful tool that can help you train your brain. Writing forces you to slow down and organize your thoughts, making it an excellent way to practice thinking in English clearly and effectively. A great exercise is journaling in English. Every day, write a few sentences about your thoughts, your plans, or what happened during the day. The goal is not to be perfect, but to practice expressing yourself in English without translating. Over time, you will notice that your ability to think in English improves as you become more comfortable with forming sentences. Another effective writing activity is storytelling. Choose a simple topic and write a short story in English. For example, write about a trip you took, an interesting experience, or even an imaginary adventure. This helps your brain get used to describing situations in English and using different types of vocabulary. Writing dialogues is also a great way to simulate real conversations. Imagine a conversation between two people and write it down as naturally as possible. This exercise helps you think about common phrases, sentence structures, and ways to express different emotions in English. Additionally, try summarizing what you read or watch in English. After reading an article or watching a video, write a short summary in your own words. This forces your brain to process the information in English and strengthens your ability to express ideas clearly. By incorporating writing into your practice, you give your brain more opportunities to think in English. Over time, you'll find that forming thoughts in English becomes much easier and more natural. Chapter 15. Making English a permanent part of your life. The final step in thinking in English is making it a permanent part of your daily life. The more you integrate English into your routine, the more automatic your thought process will become. This means surrounding yourself with English in every possible way. Start by adjusting your daily habits. Change your phone and computer settings to English. Follow English-speaking influencers and consume as much English content as possible. The more exposure you have, the more your brain will adapt to thinking in English. Engage in English conversations regularly, whether it's with friends, language partners, or online communities. Speaking English daily helps reinforce your ability to think in the language. If you don't have access to English speakers, practice speaking to yourself or recording your voice to track your progress. Another way to make English a permanent part of your life is to start thinking in English about everything. When making decisions, ask yourself in English, what should I do next? When planning your day, think, I need to go shopping, then I will cook dinner. These small changes make a big difference over time. Lastly, stay committed to the process. Thinking in English is a skill that requires patience and practice, but the more you immerse yourself, the faster you will improve. Keep challenging yourself, stay motivated, and enjoy the journey. Soon, thinking in English will feel as natural as thinking in your native language.